My ex-fiancée cheated on me, so I reported her to the IRS. I was in a relationship with my girlfriend, Megan. We had met in high school, and our connection was instant. We started dating, and things were amazing between us. We'd hang out after school, text each other at night, and share everything about our dreams and plans. Megan was smart, funny, and caring. We felt like we were the perfect match. When it was time to graduate and head off to college, we thought we'd manage the long-distance thing, but life happened. We ended up going to different schools far apart, and even though we tried to make it work, it wasn't the same. We kept in touch through video calls, but both of us started meeting new people, making new friends, and changing. Eventually, we broke up. It wasn't a bitter breakup. We were still friendly, and during holidays or breaks, we found ourselves hooking up again because the feelings were still there. However, neither of us wanted to commit to something serious. We were just enjoying whatever it was we had and kept it light. Then one spring break, I ran into Emma at the mall. I had seen her around campus before and had a few classes with her. She had this magnetic personality, confident, smart, and attractive. She noticed me too, and we started talking. She was really easy to chat with and had a way of making people feel comfortable. Over the next few weeks, I started seeing her more frequently, grabbing coffee after class or studying together in the library. While Megan was on her road trip with friends, Emma and I got closer. I found myself drawn to her wit and intelligence. Eventually, our connection turned romantic, and we ended up sleeping together. I knew things were getting serious between us, and Emma knew about my casual relationship with Megan, but she didn't seem to mind. She was confident that I'd choose her in the end. When Megan returned from her trip, I felt like I owed it to her to be upfront. I couldn't continue this half-hearted relationship while I was developing stronger feelings for Emma. I met up with Megan, and we talked things through. As it turned out, she had also met someone on her trip, and she was starting to see him. It was an easy decision for both of us to end things for good. With Megan and I now on separate paths, I asked Emma to be my girlfriend, and she said yes. I was thrilled and felt like I had found someone special. Emma and I moved in together and started making big plans for our future. Things seemed perfect at first. We had a lot of fun together and could talk about anything. I felt like I could be completely honest with her about my past with Megan and my life in general. She wasn't jealous or suspicious, and she trusted me. Over time, though, things got rocky. We had different ideas about our careers and lifestyles. Sometimes our arguments would spiral into something bigger than they needed to be, and we found ourselves drifting apart. Despite the issues, we stayed close because we genuinely cared about each other and had shared so much already. Emma and I eventually decided to call off the wedding plans and end things between us, but we stayed friends because our bond was still strong. We understood each other deeply and respected the history we shared. While nothing could have prepared me for how things unfolded after Megan cheated on me, my experiences with her and Emma taught me about love, trust, and the ups and downs that come with relationships. After Megan and I went our separate ways, she started dating someone new. But a while later, she began calling and texting me saying that her new guy was no good and she felt trapped. She wanted out, and I told her to follow her gut and do what she knew was best. I thought that was the end of it. Not long after, Megan told me she broke up with him because she caught him cheating on her. I wanted to be supportive and said she could reach out if she needed help. It seemed like the right thing to do at the time, but I came to regret it. She started calling and showing up at my house or my dorm at all sorts of strange hours. Once, she even drove 4 hours through the night to my dorm. She showed up saying she needed support, and I assumed she was just going through a tough time. I let her sleep in my bed while I crashed in a friend's room. She left 2 days later, and I figured that was it. But then I heard some dorm mates bragging that they'd hooked up with her. I didn't think much of it because I figured it was none of my business. People say all sorts of things, but Megan kept doing this, calling and showing up at random times. Eventually, Emma started feeling uncomfortable with it and told me she didn't like Megan's behavior. I understood where she was coming from and agreed. I told Emma I thought Megan was acting like this because she probably still had feelings for me. So I called Megan up and said we needed to put an end to the whole thing. She was hurt, but she said she understood. That was the last time we spoke about anything serious, and things settled down after that. It was a tough situation, but I knew I had to be fair to Emma and draw some boundaries. After cutting things off with Megan, I focused on my relationship with Emma, and it really improved. Megan was no longer in the picture, and Emma and I graduated college together. She was a computer programmer, and we both loved video games. We would brainstorm ideas and tinker with creating our own games for fun. Eventually, we made a game that went viral, and we sold it to a big gaming company for a significant amount of money. The payout wasn't enough for fancy cars or extravagant living, but it allowed us to live comfortably. Plus, I landed a job at a top Silicon Valley tech company with a good salary and awesome benefits. The only downside was that the job took up a lot of my time. Emma also got a demanding job at another company, and our busy schedules meant we hardly saw each other. We drifted apart and eventually split up. It was amicable, and when we weren't busy, we would still hang out as friends. That Thanksgiving, I decided to visit my parents back home, where I ran into Megan. It was unexpected, but started innocently enough. I'd see her around town, maybe at the grocery store or the coffee shop, and we'd chat a bit. She'd moved back home after college and was working at a local company. We decided to have dinner before I went back to California. It was nice catching up, and I promised to keep in touch. Once I returned, we continued talking, exchanging texts and calls regularly. As we reconnected, I started to develop feelings for her again. I wasn't sure if she felt the same way, so I didn't push it. I wanted to give things time to unfold naturally, and wasn't ready to jeopardize our friendship by acting too quickly. 6 months after, she found a new job in California and moved there. It was only natural that we began to spend more time together. We started going on dates, and she told me that she still had feelings for me. I admitted that I felt the same way, and then we started dating again. On our 6-month anniversary, I asked her to move in with me. Because of the nature of my job, I spent a lot of time at work, but I was able to work from home occasionally. I wasn't seeing her a lot, even though I worked from home. Despite the fact that we were living together, I tried my best to make things work. But I was so busy. We had an argument where she told me that I was too focused on my job and wasn't paying any attention to her. Yeah, you've got to have that work-life balance to make a relationship work. Well, I told her that if she put as much effort as I did in her work, she would be made executive in no time. It was her first fight. I apologized afterward and made amends. Somehow, I got a promotion at work that meant I wouldn't be spending so much time at work again. She took my words to heart and started focusing more on her work. It was great because I was in a fully committed relationship with her. I wasn't talking to Emma as much again, but Emma got a job where I worked, and we became colleagues. She understood boundaries, and we always made sure not to cross the line. I told Megan that I was working with Emma, and she said she had no issues with it. Then she started complaining about how her boss didn't want to give her a promotion despite how hard she worked for it. I told her to talk to him, and she said she was going to. Somehow, after that, she started spending more time at work. She would return late in the evening and was always going on work trips. Red flags. When I talked to her, she told me it was because she talked with her boss, and he told her he just wanted her to work harder. The reason was solid, so I had no reason to distrust her. Soon after, she got promoted at work. I was really happy for her, and I even took her out for dinner. I forgot to add that I was the one taking care of all of her expenses. We weren't sharing expenses because I'm a traditional man, and I believe that it is a man's duty to take care of his woman. I also knew that her family was going through rough times, and she was responsible for taking care of their expenses. I would send her allowances every month to do whatever she wanted to do and to get groceries for the house. She was free to spend her salary on whatever she wanted, but she mostly told me that she was sending it home. After her promotion, she began spending more time at work, to the extent that it was like we were having a long-distance relationship. I told her she was prioritizing her work over us, and she promised to find a solution. She began spending more time with me. Then her boss got promoted at her work and was transferred to Boston. She got his old position, and I noticed that she started traveling even more. I was left to my own devices most of the time. Emma would come around to say hi a few times. After I told Megan about Emma's visits, she exploded, telling me that I was spending too much time with Emma and was starting to get suspicious. She even went to the extent of calling and threatening Emma to stay away from me, even though I told her there was nothing going on between us. I cut ties with Emma, which hurt because she was a really great friend that I had been through a lot with. Then Megan comes to tell me that a position opened in the Boston branch of her company, and she wanted to take it because that was the headquarters of the company, and it was easier to climb up the corporate ladder there. She wanted to take the position and have me move there with her. I saw the effort she had been making to become a top executive, and I didn't want to stand in the way of her career, But I didn't want to have to move to Boston when I had a perfectly okay job in California. She accused me of being selfish and trying to make her completely dependent on me so that I could freely cheat on her with Emma with the excuse that we were working together. It caused a huge fight between the two of us, but I loved her too much to let the fight go on for too long. I was being headhunted by a company in Boston, so I took the position. It didn't matter that I was just 6 months from the evaluation that would have gotten me another major promotion. I reasoned that it wasn't like I really needed the money, so we moved to Boston and I got used to living there. The work environment wasn't as fast-paced, so I had free time, but Megan, on the other hand, became busier. She was traveling a lot more, and they gave her a position where she had to be working with her old boss. I wasn't suspicious because he was married with kids, and he seemed devoted to them, but they grew closer, and I started feeling uncomfortable. They were spending so much time together at work. When I talked to her about it, she told me I was just overthinking things, and they just had a great working relationship. At this point, I was getting suspicious, but there was nothing I could do. I just waited, thinking that if something was really going on, I would gather evidence first. I started by trying to get access to her phone. She was always on her phone. She even took it with her everywhere, so there was no way that I could get access to it. I decided to leave it because it was too much of a hassle. Frankly speaking, I knew her boss had nothing on me. I was quite the catch. But the next month, something happened that made me start doubting her again. Megan and I had synced our Fitbit accounts so that we could be accountable to each other. Due to the nature of my job, I lived a sedentary lifestyle, and I liked to walk around to keep fit. Seeing the other person's step count often motivated both of us whenever we were feeling too lazy. One morning, while I was checking the account, it showed that Megan had walked a considerable distance the night before. She had come back home while I was asleep, so I wondered where she was walking to. When I asked her why she had come back late, I asked her without talking about the Fitbit why she had returned late. She told me it was because she had a meeting and was stuck in the office trying to finish her work. I then asked her about the Fitbit, and the shocked look on her face made me even more suspicious. I guessed that she had forgotten all about the watch when she went on a walk. She told me that she had taken a long walk to clear her head and returned to the office afterward. I could smell the lies. I let it go because I didn't want her to be suspicious. The next day, she went on a trip out of town. I called her office to see if her boss was in, and I was told that they were both out. Megan had gone on the trip with her boss, and she hadn't told me. She told me she was going on a work trip to Las Vegas, but her assistant told me it was a work trip to Manhattan. I knew that it definitely wasn't a work trip like she had claimed. I decided to get even more concrete proof. I spent the weekend and days following obsessing over it. My work productivity declined. My supervisor noticed, and I decided to take a short leave, stating that I was ill. My leave was granted. As if things couldn't get worse, I got a call from a random number while I was sleeping the day before she arrived. It was a hysterical woman telling me to handle my woman and keep her away from her boyfriend. She spat out all kinds of vitriol before I got her calm enough to talk clearly. Apparently, she found texts between Megan and her boyfriend where they were sexting and exchanging nudes. Megan had also been buying him stuff, and that's how she got suspicious enough to go through her boyfriend's phone. I was crushed. It was bad enough that she had lied and gone on a trip with her boss for their rendezvous, but apparently there was more than one guy. I wondered who all the other men were. I knew it wasn't healthy, but I just had to know everything. Who she was cheating with, where and when it happened. Everything. When she got back from her trip, she could tell something was wrong, but I told her it was nothing for her to worry about. She phoned me later and told me that she was going to give me a treat. She dropped her bag and went into the kitchen to cook. I decided to go through her bag to see if her phone was there. I entered her password and got in. I went to her frequently used app, which was Instagram. It was a revelation. Her DMs were filled with various messages from different guys. The messages were mostly raunchy, and they were from guys who were younger and didn't really have anything going on in their lives. I discovered that she had been giving some of these guys money in exchange for sex. I wasn't deficient in the bedroom department. My size is above average, and I actually know where the clitoris is. I didn't have time to go through her phone comfortably, so I installed spyware so that I could check at leisure later. I returned her phone to her bag and left the house because I couldn't stand to see her. I went to a hotel where I lodged for the night. There was no way I was going back to that house while she was still there. Lawyer time, that's for sure. I drank a bit and texted a work colleague. I was pretty sure she liked me. When the work colleague came over, we messed around for a bit, but my mind was not in it. Even though Megan had cheated on me, I didn't want to do the same thing and give her the justification for her actions. I apologized to my work colleague, and she left. I stopped drinking and started thinking of what to do. I had sacrificed a friend, a job I liked, and money for someone who had continued to lie to me for years. I went through the apps on her phone because of the spyware and discovered that she wasn't only giving guys money. She had been screwing her boss at work for money and work bonuses. That's how she got promoted and why she wanted us to move to Boston, so that she could be closer to her boss. One thing that I can't understand is, why not just divorce your spouse and then do what you want to do instead of going through all this? Their relationship had started right from when we were in California and hadn't even stopped when his wife discovered and asked them to end it. That was why the boss had moved to Boston in the first place, so that he could save his marriage. Then, I found out that her family hadn't been through any financial crisis, and she wasn't responsible for them like she had claimed. The fun part was discovering that most of their work trips hadn't been for work at all, and they had been charging their trips to the company's expense book. Wow. It created a way for me to take my revenge. I went back home the next day and gave her an excuse that I had left the day before because of a work emergency. I applied to my old place of work, and luckily for me, they had a position for me. I sent my 2-week notice to my workplace and accepted the job offer. When we moved to Boston, I bought the house that we were living in, and I kept it in my name because a friend had advised me not to include Megan's name. When she went on another of her work trips, I moved out and put the house on the market. I then sent all of her stuff to her workplace, along with the screenshots of the conversations between her and her boss. Not only were they engaging in a non-ethical sexual relationship, which was against the work rules, but they were also stealing from the company. After I did that, I reported their theft to the IRS and sent them the copies of the screenshots that I had made. Then I went back to California and changed my phone lines and deactivated my social media. I waited until I started up my new job before reaching out to my parents, so they weren't worried. They told me Megan had gone crazy looking for me, but I told them that I never wanted to talk to her ever again. While I called her a few choice words, it hadn't been my intention to let my parents know what went down, and I tried to spare them. They told me they would not allow her to talk to me again. Now for the updates. Update 1. So Megan managed somehow to get my number from my sister and reached out to me. She started pleading and begging that I take her back, that she had changed. I told her that I felt nothing for her, and that I couldn't take her back with everything that she had done to me. I told her that if she ever called me again, I would report her to the police for harassment and I would get a restraining order. I then told her that it was in her best interest to stay completely far away from me because I still had screenshots of everything that went down, and I would disgrace her by showing it to her entire family if she disturbed me again. Her family was pretty conservative, and they wouldn't have stood for all the rubbish she did. Update 2. I called and challenged my sister as to why she had given Megan my number, even after I asked her not to. My sister told me that she felt pity for her because it seemed like she was going through a lot of trouble. Apparently, Megan had lost her job, and she was charged with theft and misappropriation of funds. Her former boss had pulled some strings to get himself out of the mess, and she was left hanging. Then she owed the IRS a huge amount of money because they had smacked her with a huge fine. So basically, she was in deep crap, and that was why she'd come to meet me to see if I was dumb enough to fix her problems. It was a great thing that I had instantly cleared her out. Thanks for reading and comment,